Hey everybody, and welcome back for garden tour number 2. It's June 22nd, 2020, and we got tons of stuff happening in the garden. We're going to do a night tour this time because, well, all the kids are in bed and this is the only time I have to do a garden tour. So we got the kids' boxes. They're doing okay. We had to do a bit of a pivot and we got rid of some beets that didn't do very well, and we switched them for bush beans last week, so there's some blank spots. That's Thea's. We just saw Grayson's earlier, and that one's Bodie's. That damage there is because a rabbit earlier this season was using that as a nest in part of the garden. But then a chicken wired through all here, and now the rabbit can't get in. Here we go, into the garden. We've got rope lighting underneath the railing for kind of task lighting, and then we've got some nicer lights through the middle there. But also I can do some work in the garden at night. Here we have our 2 eggplants that are doing great. I interspersed some herbs in between. That's parsley, that's oregano down there, and then we've got our peppers here, some of which I topped off to see more side growth versus others I didn't. It's a bit of an experiment I'm doing here. The strawberries are doing great. They're super healthy. This is the garden arch that hopefully will become a green tunnel of cucumbers. The cucumbers are starting to work their way up. So these are diva cucumbers here, and then inside we have nasturtiums and cucamelons working their way up the middle as well. The nasturtiums are there to deter cucumber pests, and the cucamelons are just kind of fun, so I thought I would put them in there. In box number 2, we have our bump out for our blue seedless table grape, which the trunk works up to here, and now it's going up and over. We're getting super healthy there. In our second box, we have some tomatoes here. These are 4 different cherry tomatoes. And then through here, we've got a ground cherry, which is starting to produce fruit now. I just had my first ground cherry today. It was delicious. We've got 3 broccolis all smushed together in here. We've got 2 zucchinis, 1 yellow, 1 green, and I'm growing those vertically up these posts in order to take advantage of more space vertically in the garden. And then in there we also have 2 Brussels sprouts. So no loss of space in this garden box. Over against the fence we've got 1, 2, 3 blueberry plants. Those guys should go blue any time now. Those will be delicious. The 2 cherry bushes that I have going on here are super healthy, and they're growing lots of leaves. Hopefully we'll get some fruit off of them this year, probably next though. Over here we have our incredibly healthy ever-bearing raspberry bush, which has been super prolific with shoots all over the garden that I'm giving away to friends and family and neighbors. And here we have our pear trees that are 2 different varieties to increase production, and they're nice and close together. And our plum trees. Now I'm going to take a step back so you can see the size of this thing, because it's the last time you'll see it this big, because this big baby's getting a haircut, and that one too, very soon, because it's summer solstice and we want to trim them down and keep them small. So you want to do your pruning over the summer solstice for that. Here are the tomatoes. 17 tomato plants in an 18 square foot garden box. Those guys are all doing really healthy. They're climbing up the strings, and soon they'll be at the top. They're almost halfway there now. And over here in our from seed garden box, we've got our head lettuce in romaine, and we've got 2 rows of cut and come again, 1 of romaine, 1 of a butter crunch. And this is another bump out for another seedless table grape. And at the top here, you'll see our 2 cordons that I'm training to go eventually up above where I'll be picking grapes from next year. This is a seedless green table grape called Himrod. In here, another example of a very poor beet harvest this spring. I'll have to pull those out and do something else. The radishes, though, are doing really well down here. Those are just about ready to come out. Then we've got carrots, and we've got more broccoli that isn't doing very well. We've got some pest damage happening here. And in here we had more failure with beets, so I just replanted with more bush beans on either side of a randomly growing head of romaine, which just kind of naturally seeded itself there, and so that's going to be harvestable. That's pretty awesome. Back here we have another beet graveyard, which I pulled out all the beets and I just put in more beans. These are broad Windsor fava beans. Two big bushes are gonna go there. Really excited about that. That's a Russian mammoth sunflower, which is gonna come up here and greet the sun every day, which is gonna be awesome. Our beans are going up the pole now. These are pole beans, both yellow and green. They're gonna fill that trellis up nicely. Another sunflower there. We've got cantaloupe and honeydew melon growing up the trellis here, which arches over here, and we'll be supporting and then picking melons off of that trellis. Here is where the peas didn't really work out. Some kind of lived over there, but I replanted some more beans over here. You're probably noticing a theme now where things don't work out. I plant beans. Here we have very healthy kale, a very healthy white currant, and our third and final seedless table grape is a red table grape. There's our trunk, and I've got several canes coming off of it. My two that I wanted to use right here, unfortunately, somebody came along the top of the fence and nibbled the lead grow bud and cut it off basically. And now I've got a secondary shoot here happening for both of those. So hopefully those secondary shoots off of those cordons will do something. If not, I'll have to pivot and maybe use this big vine here. I've got a few options happening there. This is a black raspberry bush nestled right next to the giant ever-bearing red. It's doing very well. I have hundreds of black raspberries on there, so set for a good harvest there. Anyway, that's pretty much the garden. That's what it looks like at night. It's a lot of fun. Put a lot of effort into lighting so I could spend time out here at night when the kids are in bed. And the rest of the gardens around the yard have no lights, so I'll have to do those in the daytime. Talk to you then. Here we are the next day in the back corner where we have the new bean trellis that I made over the kids' sandbox. The pole beans that I planted on either side will grow up the sides here and provide shade for the kids while they play in the sandbox underneath the beanstalks. Over here in the new asparagus bed, we've got lots of asparagus shoots coming up of all different shapes and sizes. I've got two kinds of asparagus, Jersey Giants and Purple Passions, both planted about 3 weeks ago. And one tiny little sugar baby watermelon, which will take up the front area here and kind of sprawl over there. Here is one of our two mason bee houses. It's done for the season, I can tell, because there hasn't been any new holes filled in the last couple weeks. So I'll be taking that block out soon and bringing it to the garage and putting it in a mesh bag for the summer so that the bee eggs can mature into bee cocoons. In each one of these filled holes, there will be about 7 to 9 bee eggs that will mature into cocoons, which we will then cultivate next year. And last thing in the backyard is the fruit cocktail tree. It's gotten a haircut since the last time you saw it. I had to even out the plum side, which was getting really big, so that the peach and the apricot and the prune side can really keep up. So we'll see how that develops. Last stop is the side garden where we have all of our overflow vegetables. Here we have 2 Brussels sprouts. One is doing really well and the other is not. That's that tiny one right there. 3 broccolis that are doing quite well. Our 4 Chinese pink celery, which are super cool because they have these pink stalks, and those are about halfway to maturity. We have 2 more zucchinis that I am growing vertically. Those are both green zucchinis, and hopefully they will get up and out of the way and we'll have a good use of space. Here is our succession planted romaine. Those guys are ready for harvest. These guys are gonna come in after them. And we've got some more sunflowers, one poking out right there and one in the corner over there. So we've got more kale. We've got some climbing winter squash now. We've got early butternut and spaghetti squash that we'll be using this trellis to grow vertically. Got some cilantro right there. Got more peppers here. They're typically slow starters and then they get going in July and August. Here's our tomatoes that are gonna be going up stakes. Everything's looking healthy there. And we've interspersed some more herbs. We've got basil and parsley and chives and some dill over there. And, oh man, we've got some corn damage here from the latest rain and wind. We'll have to fix that. But this is the corn patch, which could use a little TLC. Anyway, there's the side garden. And that's it for the June garden tour.